Doodly-doo. Hello. Welcome to Storytime with Captain Party. We'll be reading chapter 36. So, here we go. Oh, my light's on. That's bright in my face. Why are you doing that light? Ugh. Wow. Saturday means visiting my mom. In the lobby of St. Anthony's, talking to the front desk girl, I tell her I'm Victor Mancini and I'm here to see my mom, Ida Mancini. I say, unless she's dead. The front desk girl gives me that look, the one where you tuck your chin down and look at the person you feel so sorry for. And you tilt your face down so your eyes have to look up at the person, that look of submission. Lift your eyebrows and do your hairline as you look up. It's that look of infinite pity. Squash your mouth down into a frowny face, and you know exactly the way the front desk girl is looking at me. And she says, "Of course your mother is still with us." And I say, "Don't take it the wrong way, but I kind of wish she wasn't." Her face forgets for a second how sorry she is, and her lips pull back to show her teeth. The way to make most women break eye contact is to run your tongue around your lips. The ones who don't look away, if we're serious, bingo. "Just go back," she says. Mrs. Mancini is still on the first floor. "It's Ms. Mancini," I tell her. "My mom's not married, unless you count me in that creepy, audible way." And I ask Paige Marshall if Paige Marshall is here. "Well, of course she is," the front desk girl says. And now with her face turned a little away from me, looking at me out of the corner of her eye, the look of distrust. Beyond the security doors, all the crazy old Irmas and Lavernes and Violets and Olives start their slow migration of walkers and wheelchairs coming my way. All the chronic undressers, all the dumped grannies and squirrels with their pockets full of chewed food, the ones who forgot how to swallow, their lungs full of food and drink. All of them smiling at me, beaming. They're all wearing those plastic bracelets that keep the doors locked, but they still look better than I feel. In the day room, the smell of roses and lemons and pine. The loud little world begging for attention from inside the television. The shattered jigsaw puzzles. Nobody's moved my mom up to the third floor yet, the desk floor. And in a room, Paige Marshall is sitting in a tweed recliner, reading her clipboard with her glasses on. When she sees me, she says, "Look at you." She says, "Your mother isn't the only one who could use a stomach tube." And I say, "I got her message." My mom she's just in bed. She's just asleep, is all. Her stomach just a bloated little mound under the covers. Her bones are the only thing left in her arms and hands. Her head is sunk into the pillow and she squeezes her eyes shut. The corners of her jaws swell and her teeth clench for a moment as she brings her whole face together to swallow. Her eyes fall open and she stretches her green-gray fingers at me in a creepy underwater way. A slow-motion swimming stroke trembling the way light does at the bottom of a swimming pool when you're little and staying overnight in some motel just off some highway. The plastic bracelet hangs around her wrist and says, "Fred." And she says, "Fred." She swallows again, her whole face bunching with the effort, and says, "Fred Hastings." Her eyes roll to one side and she smiles at Paige. "Tammy," she says, "Fred and Tammy Hastings." Her old defense attorney and his wife. All my notes on Fred Hastings are at home. If I drive a Ford or a Dodge, I can't remember. How many kids I'm supposed to have. What color did we finally paint the dining room? I can't remember a single detail about how I'm supposed to live my life. Paige is still sitting in her recliner. I step close to her and I put a hand on her lab coat shoulder and say, "How are you feeling, Mrs. Mancini?" Her gray-green hand comes up level and rocks from side to side, the universal sign language for so-so. And with her eyes closed, she smiles and says, "I was hoping you'd be Victor." Paige shrugs my hand off her shoulder, and I say, I thought you liked me better. I say, nobody likes Victor very much. And my mother stretches her fingers towards Paige and says, do you love him? And Paige looks at me. Fred here? My mom says. Do you love him? And Paige starts clicking and unclicking her ballpoint pen fast. Not looking at me, clicking at the clipboard in her lap. She says, oh yes, I do. And my mom smiles, and stretching her fingers towards me, she says, and do you love her? And maybe the way a porcupine thinks about its stinking stick, if you'd call that love. Maybe the way a dolphin loves the smooth sides of its pool. And I say, yeah, I guess. And my mom tucks her chin into her neck sideways, eyeballing me, and says, Fred. And I say, okay, yes, I say, I love her. And she brings her terrible gray-green fingers back to rest on her mounded belly and says, you two are so lucky. And she closes her eyes and says, Victor isn't very good at loving people. She says, what I'm most afraid of is after I'm gone, there will be no one left in the entire world who will love Victor. These friggin' old people. These human ruins. Love is bullshit, and emotion is bullshit. I'm a rock, a jerk. I'm an uncaring asshole, and I'm proud of it. What would Jesus not do? If it comes down to a choice between being unloved and being vulnerable and sensitive and emotional, then you can just keep your love. What if I just said about Paige, loving Paige was a lie or a vow? I don't know. But it was a trick. And this is just heaps more chick bullshit. There's no human soul, and I'm absolutely for sure seriously not gonna fucking cry right now. And my mom, her eyes stay closed. Her chest inflates and deflates in long, deep cycles. Breathe in. Breathe out. Imagine a heavy weight pressing your body, settling your head and arms, deeper and deeper. And she's asleep. Paige stands up from the recliner and nods her head towards the door, and I follow her out into the hallway, and she looks around and says, you want to go to the chapel? I'm not really in the mood, I say. To talk, she says. I say, okay. And walking with her, I say, thanks for back there, for lying, I mean. And Paige says, who says I was lying? Does that mean she loves me? That's impossible. Okay, she says, maybe I fibbed a little. I like you. Some. Breathe in. Breathe out. And in the chapel, Paige shuts the door behind us and says, feel. She takes my hand and holds it against her flat stomach. I checked my temperature. It's not my time anymore. And with the load already building up behind whatever in my guts, I tell her, yeah, I say, well, I may have beat you to it. Tanya and her rubber butt toys. Paige turns and walks away from me slow, and still turned away, she says, I don't know how to talk to you about this. The sun through the stained glass window, a whole wall in 100 shades of gold, the blonde wood cross, the symbols, the altar, the communion rail, it's all here. Paige goes to sit on one of the benches, a pew, and she sighs. Her one hand grips the top of the clipboard, and her other lifts some papers to show something red underneath them. My mom's diary. She hands the diary to me and says, you can check the facts yourself. In fact, I recommend you do, if only for your own peace of mind. And I take the book, and it's still gibberish inside. Okay, Italian gibberish. And Paige says, the only thing is there's no absolute assurance that the genetic material they used was from the actual historic figure. Everything else checks out, she says. The dates, the clinics, the specialist, even the church people she talked to have insisted the material stolen, the tissue the clinic cultured, was the only authenticated foreskin. She says this has opened a giant political can of worms in Rome. The only other good thing, she says, is I didn't tell anybody who you were. Oh, Jesus Christ, I say. No, I mean, who you are now, she says. And I say, no, I was just swearing. How this feels is like I just got back to the results on a very bad biopsy. And I say, so what does this mean? And Paige shrugs. Well, when you think about it, nothing, she says. She nods towards the diary in my hands and says, unless you want to ruin your life, I'd recommend you burn that. I ask, how does this affect us, her and me? Well, we shouldn't see each other anymore, she says, if that's what you mean. And I ask, she doesn't believe this junk, does she? And Paige says, I've seen you with the patients here, the way they're all at peace after they talk to you. Sitting there, she leans forward, her elbows on her knees and her chin in her hands, and she says, I just can't take the chance that your mother is right. Not everybody I talk to in Italy could be delusional. I mean, what if you really are the beautiful and divine Son of God, the blessed and perfect mortal manifestation of God? And a belch rumbles up from my blockage, and the taste in my mouth is acid. Morning sickness isn't the right term, but it's the first term that comes to mind. So what you're saying is, you only sleep with mortals, I say? And Paige, leaning forward, she gives me that pity look. The one the front desk girl does so well, with her chin tucked to her chest and her eyebrows lifted to her hairline, and she says, I'm so sorry I butted in. I promise you I won't tell a soul. And what about my mom? Paige sighs and shrugs. Well, that's easy. She's delusional. Nobody would ever believe her. No, I meant, will she die soon? Probably, Paige says. Unless there's a miracle. Oh, poor Victor. Well, good luck with that. And we'll see you next time. And good luck to all of you.